Hi, and welcome to another video by Jimthecarguy. Today we have a 2006, it's a Dodge Caravan. A lot of noise in the front, a lot of banging when they go over bumps and squeaking and creaking and everything else. So we're going to be changing the front struts. We're going to do the entire assembly. It's called a quick strut. What it is, it's the strut, the spring, and the plate, all as one assembly. It actually works out being less expensive going that route than it is just to change the strut and the bearing plate. So I'll bring you up front. I'm going to show you how to do the job. It's really not that bad. You just have a couple of precautions you need to take. I am going to be changing the stabilizer link or sway bar link, and the reason I'm going to do that is because it's extremely rusty. The bolt, which is through the spring, through the strut. So I did the left side already. I'm going to bring you up front. I'm going to show you how to do the right side, and we'll get this job done. It should take probably, depending on how rusty it is, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour from start to finish. So, all right, let's get up there. I'll show you what to do and how to wrap this job up. All right. Okay, first thing you're going to notice here, I'll bring you in. You can see how rusty everything is here, and you see how rusty this bolt is right here. There's just no way we're going to be able to get that off, let alone get it back on. So we are going to replace this stabilizer link or sway bar link at the same time. We're not going to remove it here from the strut. We're going to remove it down here from the sway bar itself. So what I did do is I sprayed it with some penetrating oil already to let it soak, because it's a real pain in the rear end getting the bolt off of there, because you need to get in here with the Torx to actually hold this so it doesn't rotate. And as you can see, it's extremely rusty, so they strip out very easily. So, all right. One thing I do want to point out before we lift this vehicle up is we are going to remove the screws up the top first. And when we come down here, we're going to take out this nut here and this nut here. We're going to pull these out, and that'll loosen this up. What I am going to do too is once we disconnect the strut from the knuckle, I am going to use a bungee cord to actually hold this in so that the axle doesn't pull out of the transmission or the tripod, which is the inner part of the axle, come apart. So we are going to be real careful with that so we don't cause any further damage. That's it. So, all right, let me show you the first thing we're going to do before we do anything. We sprayed up everything really well. I'm going to show you this. I already took off two bolts back in here. You can see this bolt right here, and you can see in the back there and there. I took those nuts off already. And now we're going to lift this up on the lift, and we'll do the rest of the work down the bottom. Now, you know these are a little bit tight inside there. Going to be hard to get in there with a socket, but you can get in there with an open end wrench and use the box side of it to remove them. All right, let me lift this up, and we're going to proceed on the bottom. Okay, I know it's a little hard to see over here, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to actually break this nut loose in the back over here, and just where it's located, it's really hard to get in here with any kind of an impact gun to shoot this off, so we're going to do this by hand. What we're going to do is we're going to break the bolt loose first. Watch your hands, you don't hurt yourself. All right, so we broke the bolt loose. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to get in there with the ratcheting wrench, so we can remove it. Now once you start to take this out, we'll take it out partially, but it is going to start to rotate, so we're going to work on that. Once it starts to rotate, then what we're going to do is we're going to get in there with a thin-walled wrench like this, and we're going to hold the back of it while we rotate it out. It sounds easy, but it's a pain in the rear end. I did the other side, and it's extremely rusty. As you can see, it's already spinning on the inside already. So we're now going to bring it around, and we're going to wedge the wrench up against the tie rod end, and now we'll just continue working it until we get back out. Make sure you lubricate it, because if you lubricate it, it's going to make it a little bit easier. It's still going to be a pain in the rear end to do, but just make sure you lube it up. It is a pain in the ass, pain in the rear end to do. And then we'll take that nut off. We'll throw it away, of course. We just pull this out like this, and then we're going to take out these bolts right here. And I am going to use an air gun. I am going to use an air gun to do it. But if you don't have an air gun, you can do it by hand also. Hold that thought. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, now what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to remove the bolts. Sometimes when you shoot this off, they'll rotate here. So we're just going to hold it just to see. It doesn't. Do the same thing on the bottom. Okay, now these bolts are actually splined. There's actually a spline in there. So you have two choices. You can put the nut on like this, and you can take a hammer and tap it. And they come out. You see the splines on here? That's what holds it in. Make sure you have a nut on there, because if you don't have a nut on here, you're going to damage the threads. Same thing on this one. You don't want to screw it all the way on, just a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm going to hit this again. And we can unscrew that nut off. Now don't lose these, you've got to reuse these. We'll take the bottom bolt out first. Doesn't matter top or bottom. And then we'll take this one out here. You may have to lift up slightly on the control arm to get that out. Now remember what I told you about this axle. You don't want to take a chance on the tripod popping out. So make sure you support it so that it doesn't pop out of there. Just enough to keep the axle in. Alright, now I'm going to go up top and I'm going to take that bolt off on top and we'll pull this strut out. So let me grab that and pull that out. Okay. I'm going to take this whole assembly. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put it back up through the top, and I'm going to catch these 3 bolts here, and then we'll come down and put that together. So I'll just lay this in. Okay, now what we did is we caught the top bolts, but we did not tighten them up. This is still all loose in here. So we're going to push this over, and now we're going to take this bungee off here. And you're going to have to get your hip under it or whatever and lift it up a little bit, and then put the bolts back in. You want to put them back in the direction that you took them out. We'll put these nuts back on. Right, now, if you have your air gun, you can shoot these bolts back on. If you don't, then you can tighten it on by hand. We are going to get the alignment reset in this too, because the alignment does need to be readjusted afterwards. All right, next thing we're going to do, we're going to install the new stabilizer link. And we'll put it back in the same way it came out. Now, as you can see, you can hold this back here with a wrench so that you can actually turn it back on without stripping it out. It is an 18mm wrench, just so you know. Now, if you've got an air gun, by all means you can use it. If not, you're going to have to do it by hand. And we shoot it on. Nice and tight. Now the bottom one down here, you can see it's pretty tight in there again. So we're going to get in there with our 18mm wrench and we're going to tighten it back up. Nice and tight, and we're just going to put a longer wrench on it just to confirm that it is tight enough. Alright, and the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go up top and we'll tighten up the bolts up on the top, and then we'll come right back. Now remember what I said about the bolts up top, they're really kind of a tight spot up there, so we can I'll show you where they are again. Right here. What we're going to do is just get on here with a ratcheting wrench. Same thing in here. I'm not going to bore you with this. I'll tighten these up and then we'll come right back. Okay, now that we have all the bolts tied up on the top here, all three of them are snugged up the way they're supposed to be, we're going to come down on the bottom over here and we're going to just make sure that everything that we're supposed to do is done here. Alright, so now we have both of these bolts tight here. We egg-on them on. If you didn't egg on them, you tighten them up by hand. We put our stabilizer link back on top and bottom. We tightened it on. We have the top strut, the top of the strut secured on. That's it. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grease this up before we put the wheel back on, and then we're going to do the wheel alignment. All right, so any questions or comments, or you need any advice on anything, send me an email or whatever, and I'll get back to you. All right, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.